Okay, everybody, as I just told Lenny here, the DJ, I'm going to use my coach voice to get everybody to quiet down. I coach soccer, and usually what you do is you start off a little loud just to get them to keep quiet. Then I get them to run so I can get them to sit down and listen.
Do we have to run?
But these guys, I don't know, they told me they didn't like running, so I'm not going to make them run. So this panel is on From Grassroots to Syndication. Is really about internet radio and how we're going to operate. So I'm going to start it off by just having the panel introduce themselves, give themselves about 2 minutes to give a little background on who they are, what they do, how they got where they are. I want to start on this end with Matt.
My name is Matt Cunningham. I'm sure some of you have heard me ramble already. I supervise the Columbia College Chicago's radio station, WCRX. It's a program that everyone at this station has to take a class for, and it leads to a bachelor's in radio. So you have to work, either focus on production, on air, or news and sports are the three practicum you can take. But we're a terrestrial station, so we 88.1 FM, as well as a stream. I don't know the numbers of how many people are listening to our regular signal, but downtown I can't even hear the regular signal. I stream, and so do a lot of people. We have between 15 and 20,000 unique visits a month on our stream, which is nice. So that's all for me.
I'm Jason Robbins. I work for a music publishing company called Love Lane Music here in Sherman Oaks. I graduated Champs in 2011, and I was co-station manager with a friend of mine here at AER, and did that for a couple years until I graduated, and it was really helped me move to what I'm doing now in music publishing, and now I'm back. So.
My name is DJ Lane Ducano. I'm a DJ. I DJ at 93.5 KDay FM Saturday nights, and I also do a live broadcast on BeReal.tv with the lead singer of Cypress Hill, and we do that Monday through Friday. We've been doing it for 3 years, and I'm sure I could help out on that end, on the live broadcast.
I'm Mark Eisler. My show is on every Saturday night tonight, 9 to 11. I think I got to leave soon, but anyway, get it ready. On KRLA 870, I also fill in for Dennis Prager, which is a national show, and you and some of the others on the Salem Radio Network. We have millions of listeners when I do that show. I used to be on KBC in Los Angeles, and my show was the second highest rated show most of the time in all of Southern California when I was on, and we brought that show to KRLA. So I'm on talk shows talking about everything.
My name's Jim Nelson. Before I tell you who I am, congratulations to you, Jason. And how cool is that somebody that went to this school a year and a half after graduating is already working in the business. So
yeah, thank you.
Kudos to you for that. I do middays and Saturday mornings at a non-commercial AAA radio station here in town called KCSN. But beyond that, my career has spanned 35 years produced syndicated radio shows. I've worked in programming at KLOS for a number of years. I was a magazine editor of a music industry trade publication called the Album Network. I was a freelance writer for 20 years, so done a lot of different things within the music community. And in addition to working on KCSN, I'm also a partner on a website called Direct Current, which is all about discovering new music of the genre of music that I work with.
Okay, and I'm Paul Camp. I'm kind of an interloper here. My background is from the computer industry, or for these guys, more on the engineering or technical side of what goes on. I worked at Prime Computer and a really small company called Pacer Software, and Sun Microsystems. You may remember them as the company that popularized the phrase "the network is the computer." We built Java, and we helped move everything to the cloud and make the internet what it is today. And what I'm doing today with Backbone is I'm the vice president of business development. And what Backbone does is we build broadcast and automation services so people can get on the internet and broadcast. We are what AER uses to broadcast today, and it's a network of radio stations where you can syndicate your content. So I'm going to let these guys talk a whole lot more about.
Is George Capalbo still there?
George is still there,
okay.
But not here.
Okay.
I'm here instead.
Right.
So you're stuck with me, unfortunately.
No, that's fine.
But yes, George is still here. In fact, a little bit about George's background. George grew up in radio. His father was the engineer for the RKO radio network on the East Coast. So again, these guys are the programmers. I'm more the guy that helps you get the word out and, you know, broadcast worldwide. So I'm going to try to moderate, but most of the discussion is going to be done by them because they're going to talk about how they structure their programs, what they're doing to make it interesting and such. So why don't I start with Jim? Jim, what are you doing that to one, get the word out, but two, how are you structuring your shows and making that work?
I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure I'm following where you're going with that.
According to this, our expert panel will share their vast radio experience on the basics of show planning, structure, program logs, music clocks, and informational programming. Rules on obscenity, but if we're talking about the internet, you're cool. And indecency and some valuable handy hints to enhance on-air performance. So, how do you put together a radio program yourself?
Well, I actually
obviously it's different from program to program, but
day to day, and most of it's on the fly because you know you're on. You want sort of a sense of right now.
Yep.
So there's a certain amount of it that's on the fly, but long before I get to the station and go on the air, I'm on 4 hours every day, Monday through Friday, and 3 hours on Saturdays. I do enormous amounts of things to learn about the music that I'm going to be talking about. I mean, some of what I do on the air is go back and forth between the board and a computer to learn, okay, I'm playing such and such an artist in 15 minutes. I've never heard of them. Who are they? Thank God for the internet. It's amazing what you can do now with allmusic.com and Wikipedia and the band's own websites and whatnot. But I read magazines, I read online, like I just said, allmusic.com and Wikipedia, my own website that I'm work with, Direct Current, lots of great information. The point is, before I ever turn on the microphone, I want to be as knowledgeable as I possibly can about the music that we're playing so that I can sound like I'm living it as opposed to like I'm reading it off the internet. Even when I am reading it off the internet. Well, that's not true. I never read it off the internet. I'll take down some notes, bullet points. You don't want to write a whole script out because there's no way to sound like you're being genuine if you're reading it off a script. But bottom line is I just try to absorb as much as I can about the music that we're playing so that I can sound like I'm living it.
Okay, Jim, you...
Mark.
Sorry, Mark.
That's okay.
And we talked a lot at lunch, so I should remember.
That's all right. Besides a producer who right now is on leave, so I'm doing the producing of my show as well as the hosting of my show. I have a staff of interns who help out greatly. But from getting the guests to writing my monologue, which I go on for 15 to 20 minutes, I have to know what's going on out there in the world. So from news to lighter stuff, whatever intrigues my interest, I'm going to put it down. In fact, there was a story about, I start to write it today about pizza, what the new Obamacare is going to do. He's going to have 16,000 ingredients listed. So if that intrigues me and I want to talk about how the insanity of that, I'm going to put that in my monologue. Anything, if something happens in my life, I've teased about someone, the other lady I met today about American Airlines. So I'm on American Airlines, you don't get anything on American Airlines, so I announced a new policy one day on the show. I said, I have inside information. American Airlines is going to start giving you food. They're just going to start charging you for the bathroom. So I will, whatever goes on in my life, and of course I know everything that's happening, but the hours to get the guests to write my monologue, now the staff does the questions, but I hardly ever use their questions. It's more a crutch. Because if you're a good talk show host, you're listening to what your guests have to say. When I had Steve Allen, which is it's before most of your time, he did the Tonight Show way before Johnny Carson and Jay Leno. When I had him on for 2 hours on my television show, I said, well, you're okay, Mr. Allen? And he said, yeah, because unlike Leno and Letterman, you actually listen. So you'll hear tonight if you listen. That's what he said, I didn't say. If you listen tonight, you'll see I'll have 4 guests, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans on at 10 o'clock. I've got questions in front of me, but I'm listening. I'm looking at which callers I want to take. I've got to watch the engineer. You can't imagine, and the head of the station here, I invited him to watch the show. You can't imagine all the stuff that goes on, as I'm sure you know too, but especially I'm guest-oriented. So we're doing so much research. And how do we pick the guests? And when I do the national show, like I did Wednesday, you'd know some of the famous people that I have on. You know, we're dealing with their booking clients. You wouldn't believe how many hours go into making a show successful. And the guy I fill in for, Prager, he and I tease each other. Everybody wants to be a talk show host, but they have no idea all the effort and all the years that it takes to be even better at that. So it's an incredible amount of work that goes into a show.
Incredible amount. I have a Grassroots story for you guys. 3 years ago, Be Real from Cypress Hills started this broadcast out of his recording studio, and it was just a camera, him, and a DJ. That's it. He was just talking. Everybody was excited that they got to see Be Real and go interact with him. I got on the second year. We're in 3 years in, and now we've moved to a new facility, and we're still broadcasting. We're using Stickcam as a piggyback to feature us on their site during a primetime hour, and it's all Grassroots. We do it all ourselves. We have a news guy. He goes and gathers news that day, and I have a little top 10 segment where people get hurt. It's like some funny segment, and I gather 10 new videos a day. I get on the phone. I call every artist that I know. Well, not everyone, just one that I know is in town. I know he has a record on the radio, and it's good for him to come do an interview. So we get him on. We do a little research about the guest, and hopefully we could just freestyle and flow with his guest with as much information as we know. But that happens every day. Every day we have to go gather news, get everybody there, make sure we're all on time, make sure the guest is there, the guest is comfortable, the guest is feeling the panel, and it's a lot of that every day. That's what I got.
Well, my experience with radio was obviously here at Champs, and we started with a mic and a laptop and a classroom and just a lot of hardworking, dedicated students. And from there, we really built a radio station, and we had viewers all over the world, and we were tracking who was listening in what countries, and age demographics, and from there it was just a really good foundation for anyone trying to be in the music business and trying to excel. It was a really good foundation, internet radio and being here. And I actually had a question for the panel members. What do you guys think about Pandora trying to lower the rates that they pay to artists and songwriters? I know Fritz might have.
I'm like, give that one Fritz.
Yeah.
Actually, to be more accurate, it's to rights holders, which then have to pass it through to artists and songwriters.
Right.
Depending. And there's I'm actually for what Pandora is trying to do, because internet radio in general is promotional in nature, and to be heard on the radio traditionally drove people to record stores to buy. Now it drives them to iTunes and Amazon to buy, or to some other action that could happen. Now there's disagreement. A lot of the artists don't believe that, but it was true before. It's still true, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it was.
First of all, why don't we let Fritz introduce himself? Everybody else was able to, and we dragged him in last moment. So Fritz, introduce yourself, then answer the question.
My name is Fritz Cass, and for 52 years I've been the volunteer Chief Operating Officer, Chief Executive Officer of the Intercollegiate Broadcasting System. And I'm not in radio because I make lots of money. And I can definitely tell you how to make lots of money because it's really easy. I've done it all my life.
It's not
But not at radio.
But not at radio, because the other industry that I'm heavily involved in, which is the aviation industry, LaGuardia, JFK, and the airports in New York State, I'm a pilot thanks to the United States Navy, where I'm a retired captain, is another industry that if you want to end up with $1 million, you start out with $2 million. and that's essentially the same thing as radio. I mean, what radio has accomplished in recent times is to develop a $43 billion debt by buying stations for more than they were worth and then attempting to get out of the debt. But more specifically, the music industry has successfully taken a $20 billion a year business and turned it into an $8 billion a year business. And again, this part's going to be opinion, which will be shared by Paul, but not necessarily by anything else. What happened was 6, now 3 dominant monopoly foreign music companies, Sony, BMG, Universal are the ones that are left, EMI, and Warner and stuff before that, decided that they wanted to take international standards, which is where the label's everything and the artist is nothing. The artist is a slave bought on a 360 contract by the label and then owned for the rest of their life and the rest of the estate's life, currently 37 years or something like that. It's a long time. In any case, and in the United States, we think that artists should be rewarded for useful arts. It's right in the Constitution. In the Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, it says, for the progress of science and arts in the United States, that for limited times, that authors and inventors will own their art. So if you were following that to a logical conclusion in 2012, then Sound Exchange, the current collective for webcasting, would be giving 100% to artists. And if in fact the artists happen to be signed with a label, the label would own the copyright because the artist had sold it. But the fact is that 50% off the top goes to the label, 20 or 5% to the unions. I mean, what the unions had to do with the Constitution or intellectual property, I don't know. Okay. And then 45% goes to the artist. But in reality, no artist that you know, local, independent, indie, gets anything. You know, they don't get a check from Sound Exchange because there's 200,000 artists that are streamed.
Well, you have to have airplay to get, Sound Exchange will pick that up.
And then what happens is, from that 200,000 artists, 40,000 have even bothered to register with Sound Exchange. In other words, they even are known to Sound Exchange. And then out of those, in any given year, 5 to 10,000 are actually paid anything, and almost all of them are under contract with the 3 major labels.
Right.
So that's where the money's going.
Right, because it says on Sound Exchange website, we've given how many billions of dollars to artists, but
well, they've given a total
big
of
portion
$1
of it goes
billion
to
so
the-
far over their 9-year existence.
Right.
But here's the real rub. $8 billion. Paul and I had lunch yesterday with folks, and we won't name the one, but he had been one of the lead attorneys at Universal Music for 25 years. And so I said to Larry, I guess we can use his first name,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
I said to Larry, since I was paying for lunch, because I was the guy who makes money and wasn't involved in the music business or the radio business.
But not from radio. Yeah,
So I said, tell me how an artist monetize or what the future in getting paid. And he says, well, first of all, we start out with $8 billion, but 90 to 95% of that is in CD or vinyl sales now, or things like that. And then this little tiny bottom part, 5% or 10%, is everything else. Now, y'all smart people, you do math. Last year, Sound Exchange gave out to 50% labels, 5% unions, and 45% artists, $200 million, right? Nice number, billion up to that point. Now, if you're trying to support 200,000 artists, and you're trying to support an $8 billion industry, even if Sound Exchange increased their payments by 100%, it would be 400 million. And 400 million, folks, in the lot when you're trying to cover the bills of an $8 billion industry or grow it back to a 20. So the answer is that only way artists, or any artist that you would actually know, in other words, people that, local artists and indie artists and things like that are going to get paid, is on a direct license. They're going to have their work played on Pandora or someplace else on a direct license, not through Sound Exchange, and more specifically, they're going to get heard, and they're going to be able to solve the unsolvable problem. When you could sell a CD for $9.95 or $12.95 or $16.95, that's a chunk of money. You sell 1 million or 20 million of them, you got a lot of money. But people buy at iTunes at 99 cents a pop.
Yeah.
So you can't put 5 songs that you hope will work, but don't, with the one song that you know is going to work, and sell the whole CD, marketing the one song and riding with the other 5, when everybody in this room, if they don't get it for free, are going to pay 99 cents and get it from Apple. So how, again, do you monetize that? Because that 8 billion is going to shrink down to 2 or 3 billion as people only buy singles and bringing back vinyl and stuff. So the other thing you have to remember, and a real smart old guy, even older than I am, a few years back, by the name of Plato, said nothing is as it seems, and that we all see reality filtered through our education, our tribe, our race, and ultimately our experience. Well, folks, I mean, the bottom line is, as I call it, sustained stupidity without remorse, is to hope that you can continue to monetize the music business, or that Pandora, a public company, continue to be successful paying royalties to Sound Exchange. Neither the artist is really going to benefit. So what they did, Jim and it's Joe Kennedy and Tim Lipscomb, and what they did is, this is not reality, the legislation that you're seeing on either side. Congress ends every 2 years. So this Congress is over on December 31st, gone, history. Every bill that's not passed by December 31st is dead on arrival, right? Or dead on departure, I guess is the way you say it. So, but, and Pandora already has contracts. They pay 40% of all the revenue that goes to Sound Exchange comes from Pandora. So, and the next one is XM, and they're down at 15%. Well, at any rate, they're looking 2 years out. So they're just kind of letting everybody know that the system's broken, and the artists aren't getting paid. And so forget all the legislation, but start to see the logic and start to see where your friends in the music industry are going to monetize that, how radio is going to fit into that, and go with the flow.
I think it's really at like Spotify and places that where you could hear music for free, but the advertising is
Or
still
pay $10 a month, yeah.
Yeah, but the advertising is also supporting paying the artists and rights holders. I mean, Coca-Cola just is giving Spotify $200 million to start advertising with them. I'm sure some of that money is going to go to people that have their music on Spotify.
If you want to be rich in the music industry, in life, whatever you want, it's really easy. Make people happy. If you make them really, really happy, they will really, really give you a lot of money, because people honestly don't want money, they want happiness. And that's it. So in a radio format, make your audience happy. And speak to them. In the music, if you're an artist or whatever, make people happy.
So,
you know?
So to get us back on track about building your audience, before I end this, I'll quote somebody who Fritz knows very well, Walter McDonough. He points out to me that it is not the music industry that is actually hurting. The music industry revenues are growing. It is the record industry that is hurting, and there's a big distinction in that. So understand that distinction, and find a way to support the artists directly. The record labels, some of them are great, and some of them are not so great.
They haven't figured out a way to fight piracy. That's why.
That's
So,
one theory.
Yeah, but that's
so-
why they have.
Piracy is honestly not a serious problem, and I
Yeah.
know this sounds funny. And if they had embraced piracy
From the
and
beginning with
used it
Napster,
as
right,
a
yeah.
promotional medium, they would probably be very wealthy today.
They could have been.
Remember, I'm age 70. When I was 15, I was making tapes, and passing them out to young ladies in hopes that maybe they would go to the prom with a geek. But the reality is that piracy isn't a problem because people that are 15 and 17 or 22 have no money. So you're not going to buy a huge amount of music anyway. And most musicians make money on what? The T-shirts and the concert tickets, right?
So to get us back on topic, why don't I bring it back down this end of the table and ask a little bit about how you put together a structure to your show. You know, how do you run your program logs? How do you run your each of your shows? Everyone's running a different show. You're running a music show, and Mark's running a talk show. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you structure your program, and we'll contrast it with what Mark puts together.
Well, to begin with, like most radio stations now, I'm on the air, but I'm not the one programming the music. I do have some leeway, but a very small amount. That's reality. The program director is the person paid to decide what gets on the air, and they're responsible for it. They pay the price if they get it wrong, and they get the privilege of being the one to say they got it right if they did. So from a structural standpoint, my show is already put together in a way before I even get there. It's all in a computer. It's all laid out the way the program director decides. It's my job then to sort of take the elements that the program director has picked and then turn it into something that sounds more real and more human than that. And actually, that's a lot easier to do than it sounds if you're passionate about the music that you're playing. Then it's not difficult to look at the list and say, well, I would have played that anyway. I would have played that anyway. I love that song. God, that's great. So at the end of the day, it's incumbent upon people like me to sort of make it feel to the listener like it's me delivering this 4-hour block of music to you based on what I love. So I think to start with, work at a radio station where you love the music is part of that. Yep. The rest of it is all the stuff that I mentioned earlier. Just know what you're talking about, and if you're not sure that you do know what you're talking about, then find out before you say it, before you go on and say, well, that's from so-and-so's latest album. Well, make sure you're right about that, okay? Things like that. The rest of it is just, life experience and life knowledge. I've listened to this album 5,000 times over the last 20 years. So I do have a perspective to talk about this song. This morning, for instance, I played a song by David Bowie called Rebel Rebel. Perhaps you've heard it, perhaps you haven't. It's nearly 40 years old. It came out in 1974. I didn't hear it until probably about 4 or 5 years after that. When I first heard it, I just went bonkers over it. And some of you, have you ever heard of 8-track tapes? Some of you maybe? Well, this was back in the day of 8-tracks. When I heard that song, Rebel Rebel, I was so immediately infatuated with it that I traded one of my favorite 8-tracks to get the Bowie 8-track that had that song on it. And the reason I tell you this is that I related that this morning on the air when I back announced that song. It was real, it was genuine. I didn't make up a single word of it. So sometimes it's just life experiences that contribute to the context of your show.
And certainly that's more true in my case. I remember when I was on KBC, some of the highest compliments I got were, Mark, we never know where you're going to go next. And that's the beauty of talk radio. You can do anything you want to do.
Actually, that's the beauty of radio in general.
In general, that's true. Although you said the program director does structure yours a little more. I do my monologue every Saturday night from 9:03 to 9:20, and I take news stories, I do lighter stuff, whatever hits my interest. And then I'll have either people calling in, taking their calls all the time, or experts calling in, whatever topic interests me. But almost always at 10 to 11, I do a panel, whether it's musicians or actors or politics. Tonight it's politics. I try to get on it. As we came back on this new station, and in the other panel I mentioned, they don't even know if you've left stations. Once you're gone from radio, they never want you on again. It's like in the middle of the night, they get rid of you. I remember my program director said, Mark, we lost $1 billion. You and many other people are going to be cut. And I said, how about my show tomorrow night? No. How about my Sunday night show? I was on Sunday. No. How about the remote? No. When you're gone from radio, you're gone from radio. So you have to recapture all those people. So what we do, especially on Saturday nights, is I have panelists who have followings. I like that because then they use social media to let all their friends know, and that's how we've started to build up. And those in the other panel want to know with their podcasts how to do that. Whatever you're doing, try to be clever in how you do it. So some weeks I have people on that they're there because they have a great following. I want them to be entertaining. I want them to be knowledgeable. The best of talk radio is when you can be interesting, learn something, and be entertaining. Whether you like his politics or not, Rush Limbaugh is #1 and makes a fortune because he's not only interesting or may teach you something new or you may disagree with him, he's also entertaining. So if you have that combination, as I said, some weeks the people don't even know why they're on in terms of they thought they were very interesting. No, maybe they have a huge following that I want them on that panel. So my show is structured in the sense panels at 10 always, sometimes panels 9:15 to 10. And I don't take as many callers as I used to at KBC because I'm building up the show. I have something else going on in my mind using social media to get a bigger listening audience. But otherwise it's structured with the monologue and many guests and callers. When I do Prager's show, when you do someone else's show, he's got 1 million listeners, I've got to honor his show. So I kid around less. I go more to his format. I have more people who, guests, famous, people from Washington or elsewhere. Even when I had Madison Rising on, which is the rock band I mentioned in the other, they had 2 to 3 million hits on there. You ought to check out their version of the Star Spangled Banner, a rock version. I think most of you would like it. It's the best version I've ever heard of the Star Spangled Banner. But when I put him on the national show, honoring his show, I could only have him on 10 or 15 minutes because there are a lot of people who wouldn't like that I all of a sudden had changed the format of that show. But talk radio is beautiful. If you're the host, you could do almost anything you want to do, but then you've got to produce results. If not, you won't be around.
Right, and I should comment about that. The beauty of talk radio also is you don't need to worry about licensing a lot of the content because you are the content, as opposed to music radio where
you'll like this. Sometimes I have guests on. My producer was playing music that was aligned with them, and I'll make a comment I shouldn't like. It was her husband, like Christine Devine, the Channel 11 anchor or something. We'll have people on, and I won't know my producer put on their music to tie it in with the show, and I'll say, "Where'd you get that garbage from?" And then everybody's looking at me and I think, oh, you should tell me that before I go on and say something I shouldn't say. But you're right, all the music, I can play anything I want and I don't have to pay for it.
I have a question. So how many college radio stations are part of IBS? 200?
Of
Well,
IBS?
1,000 are on the books, 500 are active, relatively active, go to a conference or whatever.
So how would you guys clear that music for all those stations? How do you guys do that?
We don't. The individual stations.
Oh, the individual stations do it. Okay.
Yeah, each individual station does.
Okay.
Okay. So I was going to ask Lenny, how do you structure your program? How do you make it work?
I do 2 different ones. On the radio Saturday nights, every week they send me a list of the songs that I have to play, and it's kind of like they send me ingredients, and it's up to me to
be the cook.
To be the cook and to personalize it to them. But Monday through Friday, we have our own broadcast. We're broadcasting online, video, audio, and we can do whatever we want. We can play whatever song we want and have any guest on we want. So me, as the program director, I just pick guests and say, hey, you go on with this host, and hopefully that makes magic. And the DJ could do whatever he wants. So I'm just combining things, but they have no regulation, no rules. They could do whatever they want. So in a grassroots like show or radio show or broadcast, you could do a lot more of what you want. And I think that's the goal. You should look at a show and say, you know what, me and my friends could do better. and go out there and just do it. Start recording, start broadcasting, create a Twitter, and have guests, have contests, get everyone involved, and good luck.
Are you competing with me on Saturday nights?
Completely. No, I'm at 2 to 4 a.m. Little bit.
Sensible.
So I don't want to exclude Jason, but I want to ask Matt about what he's doing at his station. I want to ask Jason, how do you integrate into a lot of these program formats, you know, with the music that you're out there advocating and working with the radio stations on? So, Matt?
The way it's structured is we have it's everyone that takes this class participates in the station in some way or the other is taking it for credit. They have certain requirements, prerequisites before they come in. They have certain assignments during the semester that they have to do that helps them build their reel or their demo tape that they can then send out for internships and potentially jobs. You know, some of those interview someone, do a blog post. But during the day, your first semester, you have to do a top 20 CHR Contemporary Hits program show. It's already programmed for you. We have a music director. After you do that one semester, some people like to stay because that's what they want to do. They want to work at a KISS FM. So they just continue to work on their demo and try to develop features for their show, that sort of stuff. Or you can do a specialty program. We have blues shows, hip hop shows, classic rock, you name it, we have it. And it's up to the students. I stay away from that other than assigning them the bigger idea. Find someone to interview, make it current, do a blog post. What I'm trying to do is provide the other support, like create the YouTube channel, the Twitter account, teach them how to use it to maximize attention on what they're doing, have them do blog posts, not, you can post the interview on SoundCloud or whatever after, but, do a blog post to help you sort of get your head in the game and do research on the person you're interviewing or the idea, get it up there, tweet it out so that people know it's going to be on your show that week. So I'm trying to teach them, the students that don't do well in practicum are the ones that have the great voices, that can just sort of come in at the last minute, play the song, and that was, with their nice radio voice, but that's all they give. And you're competing with Pandora or my iPod or Spotify. You're not going to keep anyone. So I'm trying to teach them, connect to the music, make it, give that value add. And the students that do well are the ones that connect the music to something that's happening now. The song may be 6 months old, but maybe, you could talk about the Chris Brown Twitter stuff last week, or after you play a Chris Brown song, you make it relevant to now, and so that's how I'm working with the students is to, use your personality. I think we've all said this. Really embrace what your passions are, more than anything. I had a student, and I tell this story a lot. He was a sports director when he was at the station. But he was really into mixed martial arts, and this was really before a lot of people were interested in mixed martial arts. And he was a college student that would call up and say, "Hey, you're coming through town on this tour. Can you come in and I interview you?" So he got a big internet following for his show. People would call in because it was focused on something that no other sports station in Chicago was covering. Right? It's unique. It's his passion. He got gigs doing ring announcing for MMA stuff. 2 years out of college, he's now a reporter at ESPN in Chicago. He also still flies to Europe 6 to 10 times a year to do ring announcing. But he's doing that. He's making it his own. Don't try to, say, "Oh, I need to do this for this audience because I think that's what they want." It's going to be a heck of a lot easier to say, "This is what the audience is going to want because I love it." And you don't mind doing that research and doing that blog post. So I'm working with the students on, developing their show. I have a student this semester, Soundtrack Sessions. It's a show about, the musical scores of movies. And so each week he has a different theme. And he'll do one on, he did a blog review of a movie that came out recently, a sci-fi movie, but all the music was made out of found sound. Yep. So he did a whole blog post on how cool this soundtrack is. It totally fits with his format of his show. But it's not something he's going to play on a show because that didn't fit with. He can't do a 2-hour show on this one artist. But it adds to that, and it gets a following to listen to the show.
Well, so to play off of that, that's why I wanted to skip over Jason and ask Jason, how do you work with the radio stations and their programs and their structure to get your music either on the air or to the attention of the right DJs and the right programs? You know, what are you doing to help the radio station build their audience along with the music that you want played?
Well, I don't personally appeal to DJs and radio stations. More internet radio is where I'm focused right now, and understanding where digital streaming is and how comparing that to what radio was in the 20s, and trying to build on that and monetizing that for songwriters and artists. And that's really where my head is at right now. Trying to get music placed on FM radio.
Okay, so call it internet radio. How do you work with the DJs? I'll give you examples. Do you talk to Ted Leibowitz from Bagel Radio? Do you talk to some FM with Rusty Hodge? Rusty has roughly 3 million listener hours on one of his stations every single month, and he's got roughly 10 to 12 different stations, different formats, you know, from rock to drone music to electronica, etc. And he's got a specific format that he follows, and I'm always interested in hearing ways that people are working with.
Well, I'm always looking for new ways for the catalog of music that I work with to be played. So if there's an opportunity for the music to be played on a station, and then I just have to get to that point, really. So
Sure.
It's a learning experience every day for me. So
as it is for all of us.
Yeah.
You have to adapt, evolve.
Yeah.
Yes. Fritz isn't a programmer, but he's known a lot of programmers in his day. Fritz, what have you seen that's worked in the past, and what's different today? And then I want to open it up because we're down to like the last 5 minutes. I want to make sure we get some questions.
Be passionate, be controversial, and be respectful, and the rest will happen.
I agree.
Tell the truth, make it matter, and what was the third thing Valerie always says?
Be happy, because if you're not happy, your audience isn't going to be happy. Be passionate, be on whatever your thing is, because that'll come right through the mic, right out to the ears. Be controversial. The newspapers call it, if it doesn't bleed, it won't lead. Okay? Be controversial so that somebody will be interested in contact you, but be respectful. Be respectful of everything. Don't ever, ever, ever say anything bad. Peter Rabbit's mother was right. You know, you don't say anything bad, or just don't say anything at all. So be happy, be passionate, be controversial, and be respectful. And life will be good.
And so to end that component, somebody that has spoken at a number of IBS conferences, Valerie Geller, she's a talk radio consultant.
Powerful radio.
She says, tell the truth, make it matter, never be boring. Those three things, you're good. Okay. So on that note, why don't I open it up to the audience or the crowd or the rabble or whatever you want to call yourselves, and ask a question.
Didn't he say respect your audience? Yeah.
Well, I let them call themselves whatever they want. So anybody have any questions for the panel?
I have a comment, if no one does, on I worked in public radio prior to, and it was a jazz station at night and news during the day. And the music we'd pick would be stuff that was either related to Chicago in some way, told a story, and was good. Those are sort of the three criteria, you know. So anytime a label would send us stuff, you know, we wouldn't necessarily do it unless they made, unless it was good. We just happen to put it in, which is sort of, there's not a good chance because we get a lot of CDs mailed to us. But there's a connection, like you get us personally. You know what we're trying to do. And you know, that's what we try to do, is make a connection for our audience. And since we're Chicago, it was heavily Chicago-based, or really good blues or jazz, or a good story behind it. Like this was unearthed in a garage somewhere, and now it's a a CD collection.
Al Capone's
those are all good things. Yeah, the Coke bottle.
And take care of your sponsors, and I'll use that plug. We have our live remote if you want to watch our show. Not far from here, Smoke City Market. Best brisket, I always say, every week that I've ever tasted in my life. It's in Sherman Oaks, and we're doing a live remote January 26th, 9 to 11. You're all invited. Of course, you got to eat the food. No, we can't watch it. But we have music from 7 to 9, and then the show is live 9 to 11 if you want to watch a live Los Angeles radio show. Nice. January 26th.
Okay, other questions from the crowd? Other comments from the panelists?
I just want to reiterate: have passion, have fun.
Yeah.
It's work, but it can be fun too. Those two
you gotta
are
like
mutually exclusive.
I love it. I do it free. Actually, I do it for free. It's radio.
Yeah. Wait, I thought this is where we make lots of money.
No, there you go.
From 2 million to 1 million.
Music business and radio. You don't make money, you have
Go on
fun.
the airline.
How many people, raise your hand, how many people have the desire to get into radio, to have a career in radio? Oh, most of you.
We didn't
good.
discourage all of them.
Most of you.
There's time.
I can't underscore enough. Before you turn on the microphone, really know what you're talking about. Put the effort in the off hours when you're not on the air to really know whatever the subject is. If it's a music show or a talk show or whatever, don't go on thinking you can just wing it. That'll get you a little bit, but your listeners will figure out pretty quick if you really don't know what you're talking about. So know what you're talking about.
People will assume right away that you have credibility when they first hear you, but once you talk about open your mouth, you're going to lose that credibility, and it's very hard to get it back.
Yes. When I interview an artist, case in point, last Saturday I interviewed the singer from Counting Crows. I've interviewed him 3 other times over the course of 20 years. They're one of my favorite bands. I know their music inside and out and intimately. Could I have gone and sat down with Adam and done an interview without doing any prep work? Sure, I've been doing prep work for 20 years. But I didn't disrespect the situation. I spent a couple of days listening to their catalog, rereading everything I knew about them already, and I wrote down a lot of things that I would want to talk about. Because when the time comes, and he and I are sitting 4 feet away from each other with microphones in front of us talking, the last thing I want to have happen at that point is for me to go, what was I going to ask you again?
Yeah.
Man, you know your stuff. And it could be your favorite band in the world, but still take the time to respect the situation and put in the time and the homework, because everyone will be the better for it.
You have a question?
Well, it might be a stupid question, but I just wanted to clarify. You guys were saying you're free to do whatever you like on the radio. Does that include language?
No.
I was gonna say,
On
Those 7 words
the internet.
well, yeah, we're
yeah.
web-based radio
Right.
station, and I know that
You're
there's
good.
been shows that we're just like not sure about it. So
You know what?
Well, legally on the internet, there's no rule.
right,
But remember what I said with 4 things. Be respectful.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Be respectful of your audience. Don't,
But
if you're Howard Stern, maybe you can be
exactly.
Yeah.
ridiculous, but that's the exception, not the rule.
Right.
Respect your audience by using good language, positive things, new words that they should be learning,
Right.
and have a word of the day.
We have a delay button, so it doesn't get out in our situation.
But you're on the
Yeah.
internet. Cutting edge is good. If it doesn't
Right.
bleed, it doesn't lead.
And yet at the same
You got to
time,
connect with these kids.
you can do whatever you want. In fact, you were saying earlier about your daily shows,
Yes.
whatever the case.
Whatever.
However, at the end of the day, if nobody's paying attention, then who are you serving?
Exactly.
So you have to also keep in mind, I'm doing a 2-hour radio show and it's everything I love, but if you're the only person paying attention to it, then you might want to rethink whether or not you can do whatever you want to do.
All right.
Yeah,
John
radio-
Mellencamp once
radio
said-
as a business is monetizing an audience.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is.
John Mellencamp once said, you don't need a record label, you don't need to record albums to make music, you can just do that in your bedroom. True. But if you want the career, if you want to be successful, if you want people to love what you do, you got to think about what they want also.
Right.
So here's a copyright question from online. I go record a Bob Dylan concert. Can I legally play a song from my recording on my internet radio show?
I don't think so, but you could get away with it.
But you record,
Yeah.
And if no one's listening, it's even better.
Exactly.
you record Bob Dylan live in concert. You record him.
Like hold up your iPod or your phone or whatever to record it?
Microphones and that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you record him live at a show.
No, it's not legal. He and his record label
Could sue
have
if
to
it-
have, they will insist on the final approval.
Yeah.
So if you air it and they find out about it, they could come back to you. But whatever, somebody over here said you can get away with it. Sure, Bob Dylan's not necessarily listening to your radio show 24/7. You
But it's
could
also
get
about
away with it.
ethics too. I mean,
Exactly.
really.
Remember that Bob Dylan and his label are trying to protect their image. And so they want the proper sound effects, they want the proper dynamic range, and things like that.
Although
So-
with Bob Dylan, it's debatable whether he ever gets any of that. But
But, for instance, rather than recording that, you could record that live for your own thing, but the way to do it, if you want to use it for your show, is send an email to Dylan or the label and say, can I have that music in your format that I want to play on my show? And absolutely, they'd be more than happy to send you a digital copy of that, and now you can have the approved copy and play it and be legal.
But they have to know. Yeah,
Well,
really.
it's their image.
Well, of course, yeah.
They're
It's their
approving
property.
their
It's even
sound
more than their
image.
image. It's
They own
their
it.
property. They own it, and you're stealing it.
They don't
Yes.
necessarily want people coughing in the background when
What's more
or
than that?
singing
But-
along or something else
You're
like
stealing
that.
something.
And so they're just trying to protect their image, their product. It's a quality control issue more than it's a legal issue.
No, I think it's a legal issue.
Yeah, but if
Stealing.
if you're gonna wait around for every artist to play on your show, you're not gonna have any artist playing on your show. So there's like a little thin line. I'm not trying to say play it, but you know, if you're waiting around for an email yeah. So
Try not to say anything.
exactly.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. It's like if you don't have money, then don't buy music. You know, it's like
No.
you know, or download it. So yeah,
So,
then you
uh,
steal it. So it's I don't.
No, because then even broke people should enjoy art, I
The
think.
big money
Yeah,
is always
yeah.
in content. The easy money is always in sales. So if you want a job right away in radio, go out and start selling. Ultimately, you build your content, your image, and what have you, and then you get the big money.
yeah, waiting on that.
Yeah.
But not in
Not
radio.
holding my breath while I'm waiting, but
Well, we're supposed to be done now, but anybody who wants to learn more about exactly that, you may want to talk to Mark. He was telling me what he's been doing at lunch. That's a little bit different than the way radio used to work, and you're doing a lot more work selling yourself.
Yeah,
in
these
your show
days, if you
directly.
want to get it, it's not, you know, I get paid when I fill in on the national show, but on my local show, it's a revenue sharing kind of deal. And I have to sell my own show, which I've done successfully, but then you got to believe in yourself, and it's hard work. Nothing in life comes easy. Almost always you've got to work hard. Those people that I remember Goldie Hawn years ago said, and Bob Woodward is a famous author, they said, everybody thinks we made it overnight. We didn't. There was a lot of work behind that. So if you're willing to pay the price, you can do almost anything within your God-given talents. But I sell for my show too, almost all the sponsors I got.
Yeah.
But then again, I have to take care of them. Notice what I just mentioned, that we're doing a live remote at one of our food sponsors. You got to be in this to really want to be in this, and then if it's your passion, I said that at the other panel, you'll love it. You know, doing the actual, when I'm on the air, even when I'm down, you probably love this story. When something was bad in my family, and my producer would say, don't let that get you down. You're on the radio. You owe it to the listeners. You could never tell what was getting me down that week when I was on the air. Once I got off, oh, no, is that really what's going on? Yeah, I was with my kids and stuff, all kinds of stuff. But if it's your passion and you really want to do it, then go for it and never give up at it. You may need something on the side, right? All the actors on my show tell me that all the time, and the musicians. You better have something, you know, you got to be a waiter, right? Isn't that the thing in Los Angeles? But keep on going if it's your passion. Never give up.
yeah, and what you just said, you said you have to sell yourself. That may not sound appealing from where you sit, but guess what?
That's
We
reality.
all have careers. you are selling yourself all the time for the rest of your life.
Whatever job.
Whether you like it or not, or whether you thought you were going to or not, you're going to. That's what you have to do to make it in probably any industry, but this is the only industry that I know. So you're going to do that anyway, so I wouldn't worry
Yeah, if
about
you want
that.
to monetize yourself starting today, be on LinkedIn, right? I mean, that's probably the most important way to monetize yourself today.
And YouTube,
Facebook.
Facebook, Twitter, but
But
YouTube you can
human
monetize.
resource people and the people that are hiring people or paying people are checking you out on LinkedIn.
Yes.
I'm not so sure
Right.
that's true of talk radio. I don't think they, for the most part, will advertise there. You really have to get to the station and to the decision makers. For a position like that, I don't see those positions given to people who, just average. And it's almost always networking anyway. You go, resumes and all that stuff, monster.com, that doesn't work like knowing the right person. That's why even coming to this meeting, those who didn't come missed out. You don't know who you're going to meet here today that's going to introduce you or hire you or a thought that they give out there to you. But I wouldn't say a talk show. I don't know about the music industry, but I don't think they're going to advertise many talk radio jobs on the
Right,
social
and-
media sites.
In fact, I would distinguish what Fritz said. If you're looking for a job where somebody's going to hire you, yeah, LinkedIn's a great place. However, if you're like Mark and you're creating your own environment, your own syndicated programming, he doesn't need LinkedIn. He needs the relationship with the
In fact, it would
audience.
probably hurt me if I said anything on LinkedIn, say, hey, I'm looking for a position with my president people and just,
Well,
So that's
LinkedIn's
certainly
also
not
about
the way LinkedIn works, but
connecting
the other thing to remember, which Mark has, look, this is advice from a 70-year-old guy who's made millions. You've got to have the black book. You've got to have the networking. You've got to collect those
Yeah.
birthdays. You've got to send an email out every time they have a birthday. And you may have lost contact them for 20 years, but you better be sending them those cards, those contacts, and occasional emails, because in life, doesn't matter if you work for the government, doesn't matter whether you work for education or whether you work in business, networking is everything, absolutely everything. And if you're working in a large organization, whatever it happens to be, Clear Channel or the U.S. government or whatever, pick somebody that's on the way up and be their slave. Take care of everything. Make them great, and it'll pull you right up. It's called leadership. Empower, and then do the same with people below you, and you'll just keep going right up the ladder on the coattails of whoever above you.
Okay, on that note, Evan just gave me the cut signal, so we're done here.
Wrap it up.
And I'd like to thank everybody for coming.
Oh, yeah.
What do you guys think?
By the way, today's December 1st. I played Christmas music on the radio this morning.